Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm up bright and early because I'm going to be filming, editing, and uploading to get this video up for you guys. I asked you on my community tab last night as well as Instagram if you had any interest in the new JACLYN Hill and Morphe Divine Neutrals eyeshadow palette. I received this in PR last night. This actually was announced basically out of nowhere. There really wasn't a lot of talk about it other than JACLYN on her Instagram stories. So I didn't know if you guys would be interested in this. When I look on the Trend Mood page, there's a lot of thumbs up, a lot of likes. So 40,000 people are interested in this. So I figured you guys may want a video. That's why I asked on my community tab, and a lot of you seemed excited. Now, of course, I know a lot of people are not into JACLYN Hill or Morphe, so I totally get that. For those of you that are interested, I'm here today to do swatches, comparisons, close-ups, and a tutorial and let you know my first impression on this JACLYN Hill Morphe palette. If you're new here, I hope you subscribe, and if you like first impressions and you want me to do more of these, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps me out. I will link all the products that I talk about today down below. So of course this palette and comparison palettes, and then the rest of my makeup as I finish my look. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So as I said, JACLYN announced that she was having another Morphe collaboration about last week on her Instagram. I think it was last week. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I have no, concept of time. I'm tired. My eyes are puffy. I feel like my eyes are kind of having a reaction to all the liner I've been putting in them, so please bear with me. But she announced that she was having another collaboration with Morphe, and I was a little bit surprised to see what it was. Usually when she does collaborations with them, it's a very big palette or multiple palettes or brushes and a palette. This was just very simple for her. I don't think that it's a bad idea. I think at the end of the day, most of us, or a lot of us, do wear neutral brown shades most of the time. I know I personally do. Of course, I love to do looks on YouTube, but honestly, if I had to throw away all of my palettes except for a handful, I would probably keep mostly neutrals and then maybe one colorful. So this is her 12 pan palette. It is called the Divine Neutrals eyeshadow palette. It is in collaboration with Morphe. Now I know a lot of people really don't like Morphe. They're tired of Morphe, or they really don't like JACLYN Hill, and I totally respect that. For those of you that are excited about this, I'm just going to give you my unfiltered opinion. I do feel like Morphe is sort of fallen off. Morphe was all the rage, and I think it's interesting to watch sort of how YouTube and the community works. I remember when Makeup Geek, when I first started, was like huge and everybody was talking about Makeup Geek, and then they sort of faded away because Morphe sort of took over and really collaborated with some really large popular influencers, and then they had a lower price as well. So I feel like Morphe kind of took over, and then now I feel like Morphe's sort of on the back burner and we've moved into ColourPop, and it's interesting just to see I guess how different things change. People sort of get tired of the same thing, and if brands don't branch out, I think Morphe was just doing too many of those big 35 pan palettes, and people were like, okay, we've seen this before, we want something different. So now people are more into ColourPop, and I don't know if people are getting tired of ColourPop too, because ColourPop's releasing so much. That's a whole nother side note. So a little bit about this palette. It is available now at Ulta and also Morphe's website. It retails for $18. Now you can use my code BabsBeauty if you do want to check it out on Morphe's website, or obviously if you get it at Ulta, no discount codes. It is made in China, and there are 12 different shades. On the back it says, "You know I love a neutral moment. Whether it's a minimal look or a full smoky eye, this palette offers all the shades you need to create your perfect nude mood. I hope you love it as much as I do." So inside there are 6 mattes and 6 metallics. The packaging on the box is the exact same as the palette, so it has sort of this like nude and white detailed design. It is a smooth finish, and then in gold it says JACLYN Hill Divine Neutrals Morphe on the front. When you open it up, you do get a mirror, and there are 12 shades, as I said, 6 matte and 6 metallic. When JACLYN talked about this on her stories, she did say that this was the same formula as her beloved first palette that she did that was a huge hit. So I'm expecting this to be nice and blendable, very pigmented, easy to work with. I know that she's had some kind of misses where the vault was really hard to work with. There was a lot of inconsistencies, but her original palette, I have to say, I love that for so long. It was really, really good quality. So I'm hoping this will be the same, and we'll find out today. So I want to go ahead and swatch this palette. I think I'm going to attempt live swatches today because I'm feeling a little bit adventurous, and this is a smaller palette. Most of the time I don't do live swatches because I have a high-tech or more expensive lens on my camera, and it really gives me trouble focusing. Sometimes I just want to like throw it out the window and put my old lens on. It gives me that nice, beautiful blurred background, but it's a pain in the ass to zoom and autofocus. So a lot of times I'm not in focus when I do close-ups and swatches, and it drives me crazy. So that's the reason I usually don't do it, but we're going to attempt it today. Okay, so I lowered the lights. We're starting out with the lightest shade, which is called Chic Happens. Then we have Just Barely. That one's gonna be hard to see on my skin tone. I'm gonna build that up a little bit. Next up, we have Good Vibes. I really hope my camera's focusing. I never do this because my camera is like, bitch, what? Okay, so there are the 3 lightest mattes. So next up, we have All Luxe. This is the lightest shimmer. It's more like a pinky champagne. Then we have Birthday Suit. And then we have Drippin'. So there are the 6 lightest shades. Okay, now we have Boo Bear, which is a deeper brown shade. Then we have Booked. This one is more warm, definitely. And then the deepest matte is Cinnamon Roll. Right there. And then lastly, we have Risque Business. This is kind of an interesting, like, warm copper bronze. Then we have Striptease. And then lastly, we have Exposed, which is more of a cool tone bronze. Okay, so I've lowered my lights even more so you can see. It's really hard to see those top shades just because they're very light and similar to my skin tone. So now I want to compare it. A lot of you guys were asking me to compare this specifically to the Patrick Ta Major Dimension palette. And when I grab this out, they do look very similar when you hold them up together, but I wanna try to swatch some similar colors and see if I can find any dupes. All right, so here are swatches of the Patrick Ta palette versus the JACLYN. JACLYN is on top, Patrick Ta is on the bottom. So when I compare them side by side, the color stories do remind me of each other. I mean, they are very similar. If you look at the JACLYN palette, there are 6 lighter shades, same thing with the Patrick Ta, and then 6 deeper shades, and same thing with the Patrick Ta. Now, of course, you're gonna get different textures. In the JACLYN Morphe palette, it is just straight mattes and metallics, where the Patrick Ta has a lot more, I guess, texture and dimension because you have these glittery toppers, mattes with glitter in it, then you have the mattes, straight metallics, and then you have the cream shadows. So a little bit of different textures, but color-wise, they do remind me of each other. They're not spot on, you can see from the swatches, but I feel like you could probably get a similar look, very close. So if you already have the Patrick Ta palette, you may not need to get the JACLYN palette. You don't need to get anything, but I'm just saying you may be able to get a very similar look, but I wanna go ahead and start applying. So hopefully those swatches were helpful to you guys. I really wanna see how this applies to the eye and see what kind of look we can come up with. So to start out, I'm going to try Just Barely. I wanna see if this will show up as a transition, and I wanna make a side note. My eyes are a little bit irritated right now. I think just too much eyeshadow, and I seem to get a little bit irritated when I do black liner in my waterline and tight lining. So my eyes are a little puffy right now, feels a little irritated, and my eyelids are really dry. So just keep that in mind. We're gonna just roll with it. I tried to hydrate them like heavily with an eye cream this morning, and I even put on Aquaphor before bed last night because my eyelids are going through it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start applying this as a transition. I'm not sure if this will show up because it is very light. Okay, it's showing up a little bit, which is fine. A transition really shouldn't be super dark, but of course, if you have a deeper skin tone, then you would just kind of go down the line and figure out which one would work for you. So everything seems to be blending just fine. It's a very light shade. A little bit of kick up in the pan, but honestly, very similar to her original formula. It's nothing like, you know, the other day or last week I filmed with the ABH Primrose, and the fallout, I just, woo, the kick up, the powder kick up, it was everywhere. So I prefer palettes like this that are not messy. If you can see in the pan, there's like very minimal kick up, so. Okay, so to add a little bit more depth, I'm gonna go into Good Vibes. This is a little bit deeper, and I'm gonna take a different brush. This one seems a little bit more powdery. And I'm just going to deepen up this crease a little bit. This is like my kind of color story. Some of my favorite palettes like everyday palettes are like the Makeup by Mario Master Mattes, the Vive palette, the Patrick Ta palette. I just love neutrals. If I had to like go somewhere, let's say I was like going out, I like never go anywhere anymore, especially because of, you know, what's going on in the world. I'm like terrified to get like around people that are sick. But if I were to go out, or if I had to like get glam, this would be the vibe for me. So I'm gonna switch back to that first brush. But on the other hand, it's one of those things that I already probably have all of these shades. So it's just a matter of if you like the shade specifically in this palette and you feel like you would reach for it. So now I'm gonna grab a little bit of this Chic Happens. It looks like, yeah, it is a matte. It's like a matte cream. And I'm just gonna use this on my brow bone area in case I blend it up too high. For the lid, I think I'm going to start out with Chic Happens, and then I'm probably going to add a little bit of this. I want to do a neutral look. I mean, this is a neutral palette, so I'm not going to push myself to do like a dark, smoky look because this is a light neutral palette. So I'm just sort of getting the shape here. And I'm going to go back into that Good Vibes and just use a really small pencil brush. And I want to use this just around where I put that light shade. I'm taking an even smaller brush, and then I'm just gonna blend the edges here. Okay, so I definitely wanna go into this shimmer, so I'm going to take a wet brush and go into All Luxe, which is the lightest shade. I'm going to wet my brush with my Urban Decay setting spray. I'm actually gonna try my finger. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little chunky, this shade. Like it's looking a little textured on my lid, which is not something I deal with. It could be because my eyes are dry, but so I'm just gonna use my finger on this other side. This one is not as intense as I thought it would be. I'm not sure if it's because I'm putting it over that matte. I'm gonna try to apply a little bit of Birthday Suit. I'm just wondering if I'm gonna have the same experience with that. Try on my finger. Next up, I'm gonna go into the deepest shade called Cinnamon Roll, and I'm gonna use a really small brush. This is a Smith 304, and I'm gonna do a smoky wing. And it doesn't have to be perfect on the bottom because I'm just going to clean it up. And then to get a little bit of the shape going, I'm going to use a wet wipe and I'm going to clean up. So here is one wing done. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other off camera. So I went ahead and finished my makeup off camera. I'm telling you, I am one of those people that just transforms and I love it. I look at my footage from before and after when I do like my foundation, my lips and everything, I feel like I turn into a brand new bitch. Is anybody else like that? I know there's people that I watch that are just so like naturally gorgeous and they just sort of enhance their features and they almost look very similar. I'm one of those people. It is a whole transformation for me. I'm always amazed when I get, you know, my lashes and lipstick, blush, everything on. I just feel like a brand new bitch and I love that. So I want to tell you a couple things I'm wearing. I'm really loving the Lawless Beauty Conceal the Deal. Loving this. So smoothing on my texture. I tried this a few weeks back, but I had the wrong shades. So they sent me the right shades and I am loving it. And then I put on the Rouge Romance. I thought, why not, since we're reviewing JACLYN. So I'm using the pink or the cool toned palette. Lip combo, loving this. Natasha Denona lip liner in Dana. These are so long wear. They do run a little bit cool tone, so just keep that in mind. And then of course, loving the Melt matte lipsticks, and I am wearing Zaddy, which has to be my favorite just because it's like a peachy matte. In terms of lashes, I'm wearing Lashaholics. It says Fall Edition, but I don't see a name on there, so I will try to figure out exactly which ones these are. And then of course, I'm loving the ABH concealer. I just am loving it. So I want to finish off the eyes. I'm not going to do anything crazy because this is my type of glam. I actually like this look on me. I like a more minimal lower lash line, and to be honest, my eyes have been irritated, so I really don't want to do much there. But I'm going to jump back into the JACLYN palette, and I am going to go into that shimmer shade called All Luxe, and I am going to wet my brush. I just want to put this as an inner corner highlight. So I'm just popping this right on the inner corner here. And I think I'm going to leave the eyes there, but I'm going to put some mascara on the lower lash line. I just feel like my eyes can't take anything in the lower rim today. Does anybody else get irritated by eyeliner? I notice it's worse with like black liner, probably because I have to like apply more, but when I really do like the entire like tight lining and everything and a smoky eye, I get really sensitive. My eyes do. I'm a contact wearer, so that could be part of it. Also, I don't usually put mascara on the lower lash line. I feel like my lower lashes are literally longer than my top lashes, which I don't understand. All right, guys, so here's my finished makeup look using the new JACLYN Hill Divine Essentials palette, and I want to give you my first impression. So I'm a little bit undecided because of the shimmers that I used. Now I only did use 2 and I used the lightest shades, but I don't remember the shimmers from her original palette being, I guess, so textured. These feel very textured and they almost don't feel very intense unless you wet them. I felt like they got a little bit chunky on my lid, which is not something that I remember experiencing with her original palette. So I went ahead and pulled it out because I do want to swatch a couple shades from here and compare just to see. This was my most used shade, which looks very similar to the gold that I used today. And then I'm gonna grab a pink from here as well. So I've swatched them next to her new palette. So here's the original palette. Here is the new one. Okay, so I swatched them next to each other. This is the JACLYN Hill original palette, and this is the new palette. I feel like these swatches go further. Like one swipe, I can really drag them, whereas the new palette, they almost kind of stop. They don't seem as creamy or emollient, and the new one seems a little bit more chunky. I'm gonna try that again and see if I can like show you guys while I swipe them if we can see a difference. Okay, so I have the original JACLYN palette here and then the new one here. I'm just gonna swipe them both at the same time. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. It looks like the original palette just goes further. The new palette, I don't know, it just seems harder pressed maybe, so it doesn't go as far. I'm gonna try it with a couple more shadows. Okay, so original palette, new palette, and both at the same time. I'm pushing hard here. Yeah, I don't know if you can tell. Maybe that's the difference here. It's not a huge difference, but they don't seem as metallic even when I'm sort of comparing them. The originals just seems a little bit more metallic and substantial. Okay, next, I know these aren't the same shade exactly, but this is the original palette and this is the new palette. I want to see. Okay, so those swatched more on par with each other. I'm almost wondering maybe it is just the lighter shades that I used. I want to do one more. So here is the original palette and then here's the new palette. Okay, so those are swatching more on par, but they still do feel like they don't drag as long as the original. I feel like you kind of have to build them up and they don't seem as metallic. It's just something I noticed. So on the lid, maybe it's better off applying on an eye primer with no powder. Do not set your base, but I usually do set my base most of the time. Now, in terms of the mattes blended beautifully. I had no issues. Very nice pigmented, but they don't stick down. I feel like they're very easy to work with. And I do like the color range because you have 3 really light shades depending on if you're fair or light skin tone, but then you move in to the deeper shades if you have a medium tan, deep skin tone. I do feel like this is a bronze lover's dream, and I thought it was prettier in person. Online it looked very warm, but there's actually quite a bit going on here. It is primarily a warm palette, but you do have like pink, gold, bronze, then you've got this cranberry bronze, then a warm bronze, and then more of a cool tone bronze. So you kind of have a lot of different options, and then of course the mattes to really do whatever you'd like, whether it's a brow bone highlight or whether it's a really deep smoky wing like I did. I do think putting a black in this palette probably wouldn't have fit because it really is a neutral bronze palette, so I like the color story. Of course the price is great, 18 bucks. So overall my first impression is good on this palette. I just don't know if I love the metallic formula as much as her original. I'll have to see the feedback. I'd love to hear what you guys think in terms of how this applied, and of course I want to watch other creators and see what they think as well. I want to kind of bounce off you guys. Did you notice anything different with the metallics, or maybe I'm just crazy and maybe I just needed a tacky base and not layer this on top of a matte shadow? It could have been my fault. So I will keep playing around with this. Now in terms of comparing it to the Patrick Ta, they are very similar. You're probably going to get a very similar look. Obviously, huge difference. Price, $18, whereas the Patrick Ta is going to run you like $60, $65. But Patrick Ta has more textures, has the cream shadows, the glitter toppers. So you're going to get a lot more variety in terms of textures and finishes in the Patrick Ta. But color story-wise, they're very close. So if you love the Patrick Ta formula, you have it, you're enjoying it. I don't know if you need to run out and get this unless you just want to have 500 basic palettes, and if you do, great, because I do too. I love it. I love all the neutral palettes. So those are my overall thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down below. Please let me know. I will link the palette down below and then everything else that I'm wearing. I'm going to go ahead and jump off and start editing this so I can upload for you guys today, but I will link all the products down below as I said. So if you're new here, I hope you'll subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and thank you guys again so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.